We've been thinking a lot about the consumer behavior changes that we're seeing right now as this global pandemic is occurring. And we're going to be talking about all of this together in a webinar, which I'll provide a link to below, so check the link below for that. But today I just want to talk about 3 key insights that we saw already that not too many people have been talking about. And so just want to point it out there. The first is the change from the typical influencer sort of mentality. Now, I think that before this happened, we can all kind of agree that there is this very strong influencer culture and this sort of entrepreneurial spirit and motivational speaker spirit. These were all kind of really popular things that were going on in society. And that's been shaken up quite a bit by the change in values that we're undergoing as humans as we adjust to a new situation where we're thinking about our health and our finances a lot more than we previously did. So the traditional sort of motivational speaker, social media presence profile, it's not really something that we're looking for right now. We want something more humbling. We don't want to just hear about how motivated you have to be and how much hustle you've got to engage in. We want to have these people speak to us more empathetically. And because our sort of influencer structure is built on this kind of motivational entrepreneurial kind of mindset, and that is really not very popular right now, that we're shifting away from that. A lot of the traditional influencers are not influencers anymore. They don't have that power because, many of them built their influence by going out and taking pictures in public and traveling and showing off a glamorous lifestyle. And that's not what we expect to see right now. That's not what we're looking for. So there's been an influencer shakeup. And the key insight here, the key insight about the influencer shakeup is that we don't know what the new influencers look like. Most likely they're, kind of health-related, conservative, financial-related personalities. And what that means is that in the typical sort of influencer that we expect, which is that sort of fancy traveling, high-end lifestyle, when we see them advertising products, we expect that is a product that they were sponsored to advertise. But because of this shakeup, now, if we see a cook, for example, talking about a great app for cooking or a great app for collecting recipes or a great product to cook with, we don't necessarily know that they're being sponsored to promote that product. Because as a society, we're not necessarily in tuned to thinking of that as being the type of people that get sponsored currently. We're sort of more used to the typical influencer profile. And that's the typical profile that we often think about is the sort of Instagram influencer profile. Now it looks different. And so that means that because there's a shift in the effectiveness of different types of influencers based on changes in our human values, it means that we don't necessarily know when we're seeing sponsored products or not. And that's an advantage for the influencer. It's always an advantage in marketing because, one of the things we often talk about in marketing is that there's a typical way of doing things and people learn the way that marketers do it and then they learn to ignore it. So as people's emphasis shifts on different types of influencers who align with our values of health and wellness and finance, because we're not prepared for that psychologically yet, it is more effective. And we don't even necessarily know that it's sponsored content. The second major insight I want to talk about in regards to changes in our media consumption while this global pandemic is happening is that on the order of 25% of people are staying put in their homes right now across the entire world. Now, what that means is that they have multiple devices in front of them. So this changes the way that we think about calls to action. And so, for example, if you've got an Instagram profile for your company, it's not a super effective way to draw traffic to another website because people don't really use Instagram to draw traffic to another website on the personal page because unless it's an ad, people don't typically expect others to click on the link in the bio on Instagram because that's currently the only way you can get somebody to get off that site unless you have a paid ad. But that's less of a concern now that people have multiple devices in front of them because what's going to happen is that they can see something that you post on one platform and then on their computer, which is likely right in front of them, they can search for it. So that means that you can adapt your calls to action and consider your calls to action to be more effective on those type of platforms that try to keep you from moving away somewhere. So if you, for example, direct people to just simply Google your product or to just go look for it, then that can potentially be more effective now than it might have been in the past, because people actually have that Google search in front of them on another device. Another observation that we're seeing about people's media consumption right now is an increase in the amount of ephemeral content. Now, ephemeral content refers to content that disappears after a certain amount of time. It doesn't just stay up there forever. So Instagram stories are one example because they disappear after 24 hours. Now, the reason that we're seeing an increase in ephemeral content, we think, is because it creates a fear of missing out. Now, typically, we have a fear of missing out all the time. That was a big part of our life before we got stuck inside our houses with this global pandemic. So we'd be at home and there'd be all these events that we would see posted on Facebook, and we'd feel like we were missing out if we weren't going to these events, or if we didn't go to the events that we see that our friends are going to. Now that's completely gone. The fear of missing out isn't really there anymore, but we still kind of expect it. We're still kind of used to experiencing it. And so instead, we're seeing it pop up online in the content that disappears. And so we're seeing a lot of people popping up on Instagram Live and Facebook Live. We're seeing live webinars, live streams on YouTube. All of these things are popping up, and that is an example of ephemeral content because it only exists while it's live. And so that creates the notion of the fear of missing out while we're sitting at home without things to do outside, because there might be something live going on Instagram that if we don't catch it, then we miss out on it. And so that's why we think that we're seeing that. And what does that mean for marketers? It means that you have permission right now to hop up on Instagram Live, Facebook Live, and talk about your business. If you're a B2B company, you can go live on your social media platforms and talk to your crowd, talk to your fans, and tell them about your product and just connect with them and engage with them. Musicians are going live and playing music and connecting with their fans. And businesses, for example, restaurants that might be serving to-go orders right now, or grocery stores, physical retail locations can potentially also go live on social media to talk to their customers. This is a new norm that has developed within the past few weeks that we're seeing in the United States. And it's most likely going to continue even as this pandemic crisis dissipates, because we're always attracted to ephemeral content. We always like the notion of, oh my gosh, there's this thing that's going to happen, and if I miss it, then I miss out. And so there's still many companies that are trying to incorporate this type of content in their platforms, like YouTube, for example, and Twitter, have given thought to the sort of story framework that we see on Facebook and Instagram, where these posts disappear after 24 hours. So we're likely to see it in the future, and producing ephemeral content, including going live, as well as Instagram stories and Facebook stories, those are some things that are really popular right now, based on the notion that we still get engaged by the fear of missing out, and that fear is more directed towards things that are online right now than they are towards things in real life. So these are just a few key insights about people's media use that not too many others are talking about, and I just wanted to point out here. We're going to talk a lot more about some strategies that marketers should take to communicate with their audiences during this global pandemic. And we'll be talking about some changes in consumer behavior right now and in the future that we can anticipate on our webinar. So check the links below to learn more about that and to sign up. Thanks for checking out this video. We're posting regularly about our psychological ideas and our observations about marketing. So hit that subscribe and the bell if you want to be reminded of our posts. Let us know in the comments what you think about these ideas and what you'd like us to talk about. And be sure to like this video if you like this video and share it if you'd like to share. Thanks for checking this out.